So, you want to learn Black Survival Project Lumia. Now, this might seem like an incredibly arduous task. And you'd be correct, the general gameplay is very unforgiving and it has a very steep learning curve. So, who better to learn it from than a slightly above average player who peaked in Lions 3. Now, to preface this video, this isn't an in-depth guide, it merely aims to get you started and to teach you what you should and need to know when you just start playing. So, let's start with the most important stats. HP, stamina, level, attack, defense and weapons mastery. HP, just like in any other game, if it reaches 0, you die. Stamina is also straightforward, you use it every time you move, and when you run out of it, you take damage instead. Now, next comes your level, which buffs your attack, HP, stamina, health, and also slightly your weapons mastery. You earn a XP by surviving rounds, killing enemies or animals, crafting items, or just randomly on the ground. Now, attack and defense, surprisingly, I know, decide how much damage you do and how much you take. These can be leveled by, just how I mentioned, your general level, but they can also be leveled by your weapons mastery. And last but certainly not least, weapons mastery, which increases your attack by a lot and can only be raised by level upping, and a lot more importantly, by fighting. So, next up are areas. Areas are where you'll spend the most of the games, looting, moving and fighting. Every single area, save for the research center, has a unique loot and animal pool. Consisting of weapons, armor, gear, ingredients and, although not pictured here, enhancements. These are mostly used for crafting and or healing. So, the research center is a bit different, being completely restricted the entire game and it can only be accessed with special procedures which I will get into later. Now, every single area has 3 states: open, restricting and restricted. An open area you can move into and move out of as you'd like. A restricting area you can do the same bit, but after a certain time it becomes restricted. A restricted area is, well, restricted, you cannot move into it, or, well, if you're in it, somehow out of it. Well, in it is a bit of a hyperbole since you'd be dead, because if you stay in an area while it closes, you die. Next up are a very important part of the game, and perhaps even the most important, items. Items will decide how much HP, sometimes, but most importantly how much defense and how much attack you have. Items are craftable with the ingredients you find in different places. Now, there are 4 major types of items, being weapons, which enhance your attack, gear, which enhances your defense, food, from which you heal your hit points and stamina, and normal items, which are more of generalists, with these being able to enhance your weapon or repair it. Special items, well, each of them has a unique purpose, and ingredients from which you build your items. Now, these items can be found in the areas, and this is very important. You need to start in an area with good items. This might not say a lot now, but in the next segment you will probably come to understand. So, it's time for everyone's favorite part of the game, the characters. This here on the right side shows the stats, which you can generally disregard, and the mastery, which is important. Mastery shows which weapons you should build, which the lowest mastery point being F and the highest one being SS. Masteries usually start at D or D+, but there are some E+ masteries which you should ignore. Next comes the skills. There are 3 types of skills: passive skills and combat skills. Passive skills activate themselves, being passives, and usually do some kind of buff. Like, for example, this one silences you, which is, well, not the best, but I like the character. While the combat skills usually can only be used in combat and either buff you or debuff the enemy, and most importantly deal increased damage with an average of 110, but some, for example IS double shot, deal a lot more. Now, the third type of skill are field skills, which influence everyone in the current area. For example, this one, buffs you while debuffing the enemy, and being probably, in my opinion, one of the strongest skills in the game. So, let's talk gear. Gear consists of two pieces, weapons and, well, gear. Weapons come in 7.5 varieties, with traps being a secondary gimmicky playstyle, and these are how you deal most of your damage. While on the other hand, gears are how you will, well, get your armor. So, weapons are what you'll try to path around, and these will usually dictate where you want to spawn. For example, if I were to build a Cloud Piercer, one of my favorite weapons, I will want to build a long spear. So I start with a short spear and build a long spear, for which I need a spear handle, which you can get, for example, in Temple or Lighthouse. You also want to start these places for secondary items, such as boots, glasses, or ingredients, because these will also help you kickstart your build, and from these you can build into your more gear-centric items. Now these are also important, but not as. Although you should finish them, and you obviously need to finish them, you can usually build these as you go along. For example, if you were to find some lucky oil, or, well, a holy grail, you can easily a bit sidetrack your current objective and finish the piece of armor or leg there. Now, last but not least, there comes food. Food is probably the most important part, and after a certain point you should only build food and actively start finding stamina items. Stamina is also important. I said find instead of actively craft them, since although you don't want to run out of stamina, it isn't the end of the world if you do. Food, on the other hand, is the exact opposite, because if you don't have any, you die. Food has three varieties, being big heals, of which you usually only get one, but it heals your entire HP. Medium heals, which you get several, but it only heals 6 to 50 HP. And of course, small heals, from which you get a lot, but they don't heal all too much. With food, it is very important that you can only restore your stamina or health after every 2 moves. So in a fight, remember, attack twice, eat once. So, wild animals. They are a pretty minor part of the game. They are still important, of course, but you won't be missing out a lot if you don't know when and where they spawn. So it is worth learning, and their timers are also pretty good to know. But generally speaking, the only animal that you really want to look out for is Dr. Vicolin. Not technically animal, but the point stays. So, although alongside having bigger stats, she drops a holy blood, which, going back to the items, allows you to build these, yellow colored ones. They deal a lot of damage and cannot be damaged, affected, or destroyed, which is very good. Now, it might be in your head of, hey, how do I know where and when to build all of these? Now, here comes the learning curve part of the game. To be actually good and thrive, you have to learn everything and anything in this map. Where it spawns, how much of it can spawn, and how, well, where it spawns, yeah, which I already said. This is hard, and don't be ashamed if you have to look it up sometimes, which you can do at the top left corner of the screen in a bed. Now, next comes your aptitude and your research results, or whatever they're called. So, these give you passive buffs, which might be small, but can make or break the game. There are healing cell, survival and recovery, biomechanics, my personal favorite because I'm very bad with stamina, ultra vibration, a bit more niche, but it's pretty useful, and there are also tissue engineering and environmental variable. Do not pick these, both of them are very bad. Now, let's see healing cells. These usually come with one major effect, being less damage taken and more recovery, and 2 minor effects, such as, well, having more HP at the start or at the end. And also second one, which again, more HP when resting. I'd recommend going with healing or the biomechanics. Balance disruption is also very fun, especially with lung capacity, since you can just annoy the enemy out of stamina. But next comes the aptitudes. Now, you will realistically only need 3 aptitudes, those being ammo supply, arrow supply, which is listed here because I don't play a lot of bow, and accelerate. Accelerate is the strongest one in the game, allowing your moves to take less time and being able to rapidly move between areas, and also moves only costing 1 stamina, which is very strong. But there is also ammo and arrow supply, which free up 1 inventory space, since your, well, weaponry can get instantly reloaded and is on a very short cooldown. Back in the day, arrow supply actually used to be stronger, but they thankfully removed that. So, it's time for your game plan. Now, I won't go in an actual match, since I'd probably not be able to showcase it the best, but this is your classic normal match screen, including your starting weapon, your starting armor, your research results, your aptitude, boosters, which are unimportant since you, well, you can see, and supply. Supply are also important since you can start with 1 weapon, 1 armor item, and 1, well, recharge item. These are very hit or miss, since you might get an almost full shoe, or you might get a thimble. So, let's say you just joined a match. First, you want to move to your favorite area and start getting a better weapon, at least blue tier, as quickly as possible. Next, you want to fight a lot. Get to B or at least C plus before the first night, and try to get ahead of your gear. So, during the night you want to finish your armor, finish your accessory, and then hoard food and try to fight Vikalin if you feel like you're in a good enough position, because believe me, I already did her when I shouldn't have, and it lost me the game. After you've done that, the night is over and it's time for the day. So, during the day, the second day that is, you're basically, well, shit out of luck if you want to find any more not food items. Food items you can actually find, so don't list that part, but armor items, since there is basically none, well, not none left of course, but you'll find it hard to finish your armors at this point. So here you just want to fight, get up to SS or S mastery, and try to bully the enemies into being in a worse position than you. This is the part where your food hoards will be very strong, and if you don't have enough food at this point, you're going to lose. So the game usually gets down into 3 areas. At this point I try to close it out, but if you're evenly matched with the enemy, you can try to pull it to the final area. And if you lose and die, well, you're dead, but if you win, you win. Now, I want to dedicate the last part of the video to 2 very gimmicky playstyles, which I personally dislike. The first one being traps. So, traps are some of the most infuriating things in the game. They can usually be built like weapons, but instead of fighting with someone directly, you place them down, and if you walk into them, they take lots of damage. This can be avoided by building the EOD suit or the EOD boots, but they're a bit of a harder than their counterparts, since they either offer up less protection or you have to get steel to build, well, steel knee pads. And the last part is my personal favorite playstyle in the game, which I don't play at all because of how hard it is, that being hacking. Hacking can and should, not can, but should only be attempted by 1 character, and that character being the one and only JP, who is canonically banned from League of Legends and is a high school dropout. So, in this playstyle, you want to build a network PC, the singular hardest blueprint in the entire game, where you have to build a cell phone and a laptop, before which you have to build a dead laptop, etc, etc. So, if you have this, then you still need the system shutdown code, which is also annoying to build since it requires heavily contested items such as fountain pens. And after you have accomplished this, every single area in the game will be open and you can access the research center. Of course, you won't be alone because every single other player will come there to try to stop you from winning, and also Mr. Mage will be there, who deals a lot of damage but drops good heals. If you survive all that and find the, well, network in the middle of the research center, which has a relatively low spawn chance, you can put in the USB stick and kill everyone else in the lobby. There are also several other dangers, such as after you build a PC, you have to survive another 90 seconds, which you usually can't. So, sorry for the video's low quality and the general rushedness, I would say. I had to put it on a pretty short notice since my computer, well, not my computer, but there were a couple issues. If you have any remaining questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll probably also put down a comment where you can ask them more directly. And most importantly, have fun.